First of all, I would like to thank you for coming. I know you've been invited, and it was a good time to stay home in cool shade or drinking some water with ice and maybe sleeping. I don't know. Well, I don't know your pattern for Saturdays, but this one is a special one. Today we will talk about a controversial subject, the flood. After a great deal of research, I have found three categories of scientists holding different views about the flood. Well, the first category are the adventurer scientists. This is, I came up with this name, so you will not find them anywhere. So why I'm saying that? Because these guys think the flood was local. This guy, Robert Ballard, he's a scientist, and he discovered the wrecked Titanic, and he led a National Geographic expedition to find evidence for Noah's flood. He said that the Mediterranean Sea was rising and was flooding the Black Sea, who was at that time a huge lake of fresh water. That's interesting for those who know Black Sea. But that was his idea, and there are not many proponents of this idea. But the second category are the uniformitarian scientists, who start from the premise of naturalism. If you'd like to go for the second slide. Those scientists are evolutionists in belief, and they really they have faith. They are not atheists. They have faith, but their faith is in naturalism. And one of their guys, his name is John Hutton. He wrote Theory of the Earth. He said something very interesting, and I will quote: "The past history of our globe must be explained by what can be seen to be happening now. No powers are to be employed that are not natural to the globe, no action to be admitted except those of which we know the principle." And the principle was uniformitarian. Well, this was not a refutation of biblical teaching of creation and flood. Actually, it's a dogmatic refusal to consider them even possible. So he starts from this, and he doesn't require any evidence. Third category of scientists are the creationists, who allow the supernatural to happen, and they hold to the global flood view. Evolutionists, they said, hey, there is no flood. There is something else. Creationists said, yes, it was, but it's global. Three types of scientists looking at the same data. Same data, three kind of scientists, three main ideas. Why that? Because of their presuppositions and beliefs. It is just one reality, and each one of them looking to that reality through some lenses. Expecting a scientist to be free of faith is a hopeless endeavor. Everybody starts with a faith. Even those who said, oh, no, we are free of it. No, there is nothing like that. The whole issue is to prove this. And next slide is the issue. Either the time scale proposed by second kind of a scientist is correct and was no flood as described in the Bible, or the time scale is incorrect and the global flood cataclysm is a genuine possibility. So this is the main idea we will start from, and I would like to present you some recent discoveries. When you will think this is enough for me, just raise a hand and I will know. Yeah, I have plenty of them. So if you are bored and they say, hey, this is too much science for me, I understand, maybe I will just pass through them, explaining them a little bit, but it is interesting. The time scale cannot be absolute. Radioisotope dating methods rely critically on the assumption that nuclear decay rates have remained constant over the entire course of Earth history. It's just an assumption. Why I'm saying that? Because high levels of helium retention were found in zircons. And actually after a great deal of time, they should not find any. But because they found some scientists think that those kind of rocks are only 6,000 years old. C14, carbon 14, you know the dating with C14, so it's nothing that you've never heard, is still present in Paleozoic and Mesozoic fossils. The half-life of C14 is 5,730 years. So if you are looking for some C14 in 100,000 years, is almost undetectable. Now, where they come with those millions of years? I don't know, because they said, hey, we dated them with C14. But the reality is, after 1 million years, the amount remaining of C14 is 0.53 other zeros and a 3. Hey, that's pretty interesting. But the problem is, no, this is the other one. There are some scientists, they took some coal fossils and they found from 0.1 to 0.5% of a modern value where they assume carbon was free because of their place in the geological record. Organisms alive at the onset of the flood should still be detected today. So you should choose now. What do you want to believe? It's not what data you have, it's what you believe. Because data will tell you something else that others are proposing. Conclusion, a radically revised timescale. Actually, this is the main idea. The nuclear decay rates for the long half-life species used for radioisotope dating have not been content over the Earth history. Another thing that is interesting is, and we talked about that last time when we had our meeting, original tissue preservation in fossils. This will be considered consistent with thousands of years, not millions. Hell Creek, Montana, USA, a well-preserved soft tissue including flexible blood vessels containing red blood cells from a T-Rex. In 2013, they found also a preserved original tissue in a horn of Triceratops. Now, it is unimaginable that such soft tissue could be preserved 65 million years, as asserted by standard geological timescale. Another finding in a recent finding is the great unconformity. The erosional unconformity, which corresponds to time age, tectonic, sedimentary, and paleontological discontinuities, is of global extent. You see that boulder right there is almost 4.5 meters diameter and around 200 tons. But that should not be there. It's unexplained. Why that? Another thing that they found out is global scale numerical modeling of flood erosion and sedimentation. There is this scientist, John Baumgartner, has developed a numerical model designed to explore the mechanism that result in such a large-scale pattern of erosion and sedimentation. He conducted an experiment in 2013, and that experiment indicated that 6 tidal pulses, like, what's the name of the huge wave? Tsunami. Yeah, imagine 6 tsunami spaced about 30 days apart are adequate to erode, transport, and deposit the 1,800 meters of sediment observed to blanket the continental surface today. Is not impossible. Actually, it's doable, and it was an experiment done in laboratory. Another thing that is interesting is the characteristic of the sediment record. The thickness of sedimentary deposition is of 5,000 meters in Colorado Plateau. What physical process would lower the surface so that it may receive so much sedimentation? You see there that arrow? In between these 2 strata, there is non-erosion. Why? It should be something there. There is nothing. And this is not just one case, is more and more, but this is just one of the pictures I found out. There is so little erosional channeling at formation boundaries within the thick layer. So little. Today we cannot see anything like this. The present is not the key of the past, as was supposed. Fossil graveyards. I don't know how much do you know about fossils, but in Vernal, Utah, Dinosaur National Museum, dozens of dinosaurs buried together under violent conditions, torn apart. The bones remain still articulated. Morrison Formation yielded more dinosaur fossils than any other formation in USA. Mesaj Pit is 35 kilometers southeast Frankfurt am Main, Germany. Actually, they found out 9 mating pairs of turtles, over 10,000 fossilized fish, innumerable small mammals. You see the left-hand side picture is from Germany. Down there, the fish, Germany. Right-hand side, United States. And the remaining 2, I took by myself. Those pictures were in Dachstein, Austria. And actually, I bought some too. This is €1. But it's interesting. This is somewhere, they said this is somewhere in Jurassic. You can find this. And it's from Austria. It's not made in Austria, but it's from Austria. What this kind of a fossil will be in Dachstein. If you would like to see it or touch it, whatever, just, it's interesting. But the other ones were bigger. Not like this one, but bigger. To preserve a fossil requires catastrophically rapid burial. Otherwise, scavengers or insects or bacteria will degrade the organism. So all those massive fossil graveyards are there because of the flood, I presume. Coal deposits point to catastrophic process also. You see, this picture is taken in Powder River Basin, in the largest coal deposit in USA, with 30 meters thickness and with an area of 50,000 square kilometers. Actually, they said the this area, actually the coal was conifer trees that grew elsewhere and was transported here. 30 meters thick, 50,000 square kilometers. That's interesting. Huge removal of sediments from continent interiors by erosion after the entire sequence was deposited. The next slide, please. If you see, I wrote that in kilometers. You see those numbers? Those are kilometers of thickness. 15 kilometers, you see where they are? Not where mountains. So that's why the main idea is a rapid increase in the volume of oceans and then a rapid lowering of the global sea level. And from this map, you can see the thickness of accumulation of sediments are along the continent margins. So these sediments were washed there. Another finding is the ocean floor actually is younger than the continents. And this is not 2 years ago. They found out this after World War II. And because of the submarines and the sonars that they have, they found out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, there is a ridge, and it is not small. All ocean floor was being subducted into the Earth's interior. I will talk more about that afterwards. So imagine some plate tectonics going underneath Earth. And you know what? It's happening today too. Not with this, with the same speed, but it's happening. Actually, after doing this research, I thought, I don't know much about our Terra. I don't know much about this Earth. And that scared me. Maybe you've heard about trenches, Mariana Trench and everything. Is because of that. But I will have another picture, a better picture later on. Plate tectonics is logically explained by the catastrophic event. And this is not what I say, but scientists. Because none of the pre-flood or Paleozoic ocean floor is to be found at the Earth's surface today, all of this ocean lithosphere must be cycled into the Earth's interior during the year of the flood. So what you see here is a continental plate, and this is oceanic plate, and this oceanic plate is going down into the mantle of the Earth. And as much as it's going down, it will heat up, and somewhere here, you will see volcanoes. And it's normal. It's doing, and actually, why you see this arrow? This is it right here. Instead of subduction and seafloor spreading speeds of only centimeters per year, like today, during the flood, the speeds must have been on order of meter per second. Actually, the scientists discovered it was 3 meters per second, sinking. Now, you can imagine what happened. It's not some little rain, and a boat, and we sing about. Woo. No. It was a cataclysm. It was catastrophic. Plate tectonics going down into the earth, volcanoes going up, and seismic can you imagine this? Maybe 3 times per day, or ongoing process, but that was happening. Catastrophic plate tectonics is similar to conventional plate tectonics, except that spectacular awakening throughout the mantle associated with runaway physics yields dramatically higher plate speeds, as well as dramatically more rapid motion within the mantle itself. It was calculated, it is made by computer, it is proved in the laboratory today. It is not science fiction, it is science, just science. Seismic tomography, not topography, tomography, support for a recent episode of catastrophic plate tectonics. Since the mid-80s, a preeminent feature in all seismic models showed there is a ring in the mantle below the Pacific subduction zone that displays high seismic wave speed. This is with blue in our picture. And with red is a zone with low seismic wave speed. The difference of the two is at least 3,000 degrees Celsius. This comes to support for a recent episode of catastrophic plate tectonics involving the runaway of large amounts of cold rock from the Earth's surface and upper mantle to the base of the lower mantle. Next one is the same thing that we talked about earlier, but it was a 2D, but this is 3D. They did it in a computer-based model, and they showed, that's very interesting. This is Pangea. You know, are you accustomed with this? You know, just one continent that was before. This is it. And here is the place where the tectonics was going down, okay, plunging into the earth. And they made this on computer. This is in the beginning, after 70 days, after 120 days. This is today, huh? Part of the flood was, so the whole flood was 370 days. First 40 days was raining. Another 150 days. It was this catastrophic plate tectonics. And this is the result that we see today with the continents and everything. Another thing that was interesting for me, the new research in sedimentology. Guy Berthold is a French guy. He studied the deposition of mixtures from flowing waters. The results indicate that different sedimentation deposit in vertical and horizontal direction. So if you see sediments like this doesn't mean years. It's just sedimentation. But because he goes counter the current, they just isolated him. Actually, I was reading a lot. Other scientists mocking him. He said, "Hey, you have your model is very old. You don't know what you say. And this guy has great credentials in France. And when he answered, he was very humble, but he answered very well, saying that his model was done in a scientific method. The last thing that it is good nobody raised their hand. This is, maybe it was really, maybe you were really there. But the last thing is what I was struck. Would you like to? Last year was discovered this kind of a rock is more like a diamond. The name they come up with is ringwooded. I hope I read it good in English, but it's very interesting. They found it 660 kilometers beneath the crust of the earth. It contains 1% water. So if just 1% of the weight of mantle rock located in the transition zone was water, it would be equivalent to nearly 3 times the amount of water in our oceans. And you know, today's surface of the earth is 71% water and just the rest earth. But how about 660 kilometers beneath, you will find ocean 3 times more than we have today. And we know and we see. That's mind-boggling. Maybe someone will ask, where is all the water coming from in the flood? Well, it's still right there. Maybe we have for another 2 or 3 floods. But thank God is captured. Right now is captured inside the rocks. But if something happens and evaporates, then hold on. But we have a promise from God. There is no flood. Will be no flood anymore. Just one time. I would like to give you a possible scenario for the flood. I'm honest, I believe in the global flood, and I will give you some ideas. And then we will sing a little bit, and I will expect from you some questions. We will divide in small groups, and you have to come up with 2 or 3 questions. And I will try to answer. Hopefully, I will be able. The flood, first of all, the flood started as a hydrological cataclysm. In the first 40 days of the flood, the earth crust was fractured, releasing vast subterranean waters. It, in the Bible, is called the fountains of the great deep. Under great pressure into the atmosphere, probably it was released, the water was released as high as 30 kilometers. It is suggested that the mid-Atlantic ridge is the place where it all started. You remember that picture. Thus, the initial rupture of the Earth's crust would hurl rocks and sediments in gigantic, muddy fountains of water, which then lead to intense precipitations. And this is consistent with Genesis 7. And this was for 40 days. The rain in the 40 days of the flood involved not the return to the earth of the jets of superheated steam ejected in the atmosphere, which would partly fall as heavy rain, huge hail, storm, and snow. It's going up 30 kilometers, okay? But great quantities of rock debris as well. Many fossils could have formed within the first few weeks of the flood in this model. These fountains would eventually be followed by many large volcanic activities. Okay, it was in 1883 the Krakatoa volcano burst to a height of 55 kilometers. The volcano exploded and was sending rocks so high. The explosion was so intense that it could be heard 4,600 kilometers away. Dust fell at a distance of 5,000 kilometers 10 days after the explosion, and a tsunami of 30 meters high traveled right across the Indian Ocean at 720 kilometers per hour. And this is just one. After 40 days, the flood continued as a tectonic cataclysm. So first of all, hydrological cataclysm, and then tectonic cataclysm. And this is consistent with the Bible, what the Bible record brings forth. A subduction mechanism may then have taken over from initial catastrophe, driving continuous uphills in the earth mantle under the seas, and sustaining the disaster for the rest of the flood year. Slabs of oceanic crust broke loose and subducted along thousands of kilometers of pre-flood continental margins. Well, this would cause strong convection currents in the Earth's outer core and explain how geomagnetic reversal took place. So the slabs were going down and the magma was going up, and it was a convection movement inside the mantle. The waters of the ocean were still rising. Parts of the land were still covered entirely by water. There may have been a brief lull, but certainly this is not inconsistent with what Genesis 7 says. In the next 110 days, immense volcanic upheaval occurred on the land masses, but still not all the land was fully covered. There are tracks in the Mesozoic that are consistent with ground still being available at the late stage of 150 days. Some tracks may already have been made earlier, just after the 40 days initial onslaught. Finally, the waters with vast amounts of debris and sediment overpowered these large creatures. Some creatures were trying to escape, and maybe they fought, but finally they were drawn too. That's why you will find creatures here, some creatures here, and some creatures here in the strata. It was not what we think. It rained and that was it. Waters coming from down and coming down with huge blocks of ice or hail or snow and water and tectonics. This is for almost 200 days. Almost 200 days. Marine fossils are found high up in mountains in Alps, and I've seen them, often deposited with great violence. There are other burial places in Alberta and Montana, South Dakota, Kansas, and Colorado. Large creatures, including dinosaurs, were trapped in the floating Carboniferous forest. The evidence for these vast islands of vegetation carried by the heaving seas seems to be particularly strong. These creatures swarmed in the inhospitable land in the final stages of the flood. Finally, they died too. So, in Psalm 104, it says that the mountains ascended, the valleys descended at the end of the flood. And That occurred immediately after the earth was finally covered. Do we have biblical support? Yes, we have. Plenty. The flood was. Would you like to go further a little bit? More. The flood was a design cataclysm, was not random. God announced Noah to build an ark, and he waited 120 days until the ark was built. Specific classes of creatures were targeted for total destruction: humans and terrestrial animals. All animals in the ark were driven by God at God's choice to come in ark. The flood had a start and had an end. The whole thing lasted for 370 days. That means God designed that. It didn't happen. Jesus supported the flood in two places, in Matthew 24:39 and Luke 17:27. He said, the flood came and took them all away. And at least for me, that was enough to believe flood exists. But we have plenty of scientific data backing up the flood. Peter supported the flood, and there are 3 texts where Peter, the apostle, talks about the flood. Why the flood happened? Do you know why the flood happened? Now it's my turn to ask you, and then I have my turn to you for receiving questions. Do you know why the flood happened? Anybody?
Because the people were evil and who wanted to make new good ways of living.
Yeah, good answer. Great. Would you like to give us? This is the reason. This is the reason. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Second, the wickedness of men was great in the earth. Third, every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Fourth, the earth was filled with violence. Fifth reason, the earth was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. 5 reasons. You can see them today too. Each one of them. And our God is not sending another flood. But you can see them in schools, in mass media, everywhere. You can see them. And it's a strive of modern men for all these things. Okay. It was a judgment that God called upon the earth. Noah and his family, they were saved. What is this for us? Well, the message of Christianity is that even the man is a rabid sinner, God is using the way of salvation. In the days of Noah, he found him and his family. God saved them. But today's sin is not obliterated, but God prepared another way of salvation. And we know who is he. Jesus Christ. If God has pronounced judgment in Noah's times, he will keep his promise about the last judgment over the world. We have an example before why God would not keep his promise now. It's evident he will. If you know you battle with sin, there is a chance for you. You can escape. There is a Noah's Ark for today, and this is the cross of Jesus Christ. If you want to avoid judgment, you have to come to cross. You are the modern, and we are the modern Noah, who will choose to be saved. A judgment is now on the way, and you have some time to get in the boat, and it is time to bring your family too. If you are ready to hop up on board, you could come afterwards and talk with me, and we can pray and we can talk more. Let's do that. We will have a song, and then it is a time of interaction. We should go, we have those chairs already prepared. Let's talk a little bit. Please bring some questions to me. I will love to answer. If I don't know the answer, I will be honest. I will say, I don't know. But I will find out an answer, and I will come back with that answer if you give me your email address, and I will send you back the answer. So let's sing some, and then we will talk, we will interact, and if you have questions, please hand them to me. We will, afterwards, we will finish this part of our meeting, and we'll go down and have some fellowship. We will talk more. We'll know each other more, and we'll eat a little bit. But before eating, let's work a little bit. I can't wait for your questions.